Hi, my name is PeeJ. Let me not waste your time. Today I'll be showing you how to make SVG morphing inside of DaVinci Resolve using text animations like this. There's going to be a lot of different types of plugins we're going to download today. So strap in and welcome to another Mograph Monday. All right, to start off, where does this style come from? Mainly, I've seen it from Matt Voice. He makes a bunch of dope stuff with this SVG morphing technique. So you can see here that it just blends from one type of style to the other using variable fonts, and it just looks very nice, very mesmerizing. And I was trying to figure out how to do it in DaVinci Resolve, and I finally figured it out. So I refined the process a bit, had to make some tools myself in order to create this nice process to make it as smooth as possible as I can make it, at least right now. So in order to do this effect, what you really need is a variable font. So what are variable fonts? So if you go to Google Fonts over here, and all these links I'll have in the description below, go to Google Fonts, go to the filters and go to technology. You can click the variable and I'll show you all the variable fonts that they have. The variable fonts are built in a way where if you increase the weight of the font, the position of the letter will stay in the same place, and so it will look nice when you are scrolling through the weights up and down, increasing and decreasing them, and it'll look and animate very nicely. So we're going to use a variable font. The one that I'm going to use in this tutorial is going to be Montserrat. Right there, you can just click it and then get font and then download it and install it into your system. And there's a bunch of other tools that I'm going to be using today. For example, one of them is going to be the time displacement fuse that I've gone over in the time displacement tutorial. So if you don't know how to install that, go to that video and I'll show you how to get this tool. And you'll need to log in and verify yourself on site of WeSuckLess because they have a new security measures to make sure no AI bots are scraping the website. So do that, then you can download this by Danelle, and I'll be linked over here. And you also need to download another script from WeSuckLess, which is the shape converter here, KA shape converter. You just go down to this link, you can go down over here, just download this into a Lua file and then install that into your script folder. And if you don't know how to install scripts into your script folder, I have a video going over that right here as well. Next, we're going to go over to another WeSuckLess site, but this time we're going to go on GitLab and then download the vector snapshot from the atom itself. And then you can download it over here. And this is going to be another script that we're going to use in order to vectorize our text once we have it created. So install that in the same place you install the other script of shape converter. And then lastly, I made a script myself and it's going to be on my GitHub as well. And there's a version for free users and for paid users. I needed to make one for free users because it involves a UI panel, and because free users cannot use UI panels, then I have the code pretty easily accessible. Even if you don't know how to code, you just got to change your parameters on the script itself, and then you can run it inside of DaVinci Resolve and then have it do its correct things there. The one we're going to be using is rotate SVG points there. So you can take a look at that and you can see all the things that we're going to need to be changing are right here. For example, we're going to be linking to a certain file path of where we're going to save a certain file. Then we need to choose which way we need to rotate whatever we're going to rotate, which is going to be our SVG, and how many times we're going to rotate it by, so how many points, and then the rest you can just leave blank. So it should be nice and accessible right here. And if you are a paid user, I just put that script. When it pops up, you can change all those settings within the UI panel there. All right, with all 5 of those downloads out of the way, hopefully you can get back into it. And once you have all those installed, we can go and start. All right, to start off, I'm just going to add a fusion composition from my effects library. If you don't know how to do that, you go to effects, go down to toolbox, go down to effects, and then go to your fusion composition over here, drag that onto your timeline, and you're going to drag it out to however long we want this to be. Let's make this 4 seconds long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, holding down shift and arrow key. You skipped 1 second at a time, and we can drag that out to 4 seconds long. Now we can go inside of the fusion page just like this. We have our media out over here, and then I'm going to grab a text node. So we can just grab it from our toolbar over here and view it in our viewer. And then let's change our font to Montserrat. So we can just type in M-O, and then it brings us to the M-Os, and then we have Montserrat right there. And then we can type in whatever word we want. Let's just do my name to make it easy. I like to do it all caps because it's nice to morph between all the caps, but you can do it however you want. The process is going to be the same, and then we can scale it up to however big we want this to be. And right now it's at a very extra bold font, but if we go down, you can see now we can see how it animates nicely between the different lengths over here. We're not going to use this type of morphing here. We're going to use vector distortion because even between the thicknesses is not very smooth. You do it through the text node, and we will just be doing it through the SVGs. So first, we're going to line up to where we want the text to start off at. So I think this is going to be looking good here. Maybe we want to stretch this out, so we just take another transform node, or actually we can do it within the text node. Go to the shading tab, go down to the size down at the very bottom, and we can increase the Y so it goes up like that. And then maybe you can just bring it down a tad bit with the layout. Maybe have something like this. Make sure it's a little centered. I think that'll be okay, just about right there. And it's a little bit not thick on the other side. So we can just take another road dilate that, view that, and then change it from lock XY and then increase the X a bit so it is even on both sides. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to take this and save this over here. I want to take the same text node, copy it and paste, and then let's just reset the settings that we have on here, get rid of that size that we just put there, and then we can go to the text, and then we could go and let's just make it as thick as we can, like that. And so we're going to transform from this to this. Maybe that's not very centered as well. Looks a little below center, so we can just increase this to the better. Oh, that's sorry, we didn't center it there. So okay, this should look good. So we just go between from this frame to this frame. All right, we should be good there. Now we're going to vectorize our shapes, and so we need to put whatever we want to vectorize in the first viewer. So when we run the script, so we're going to hit Control Shift Space. It's going to bring up the Select Action menu, and then we could type in vector snapshot. But I can just run that. There we go. It runs, and then we can have our vectors saved into this page over here, which is in our temp folder. All different types of vector distortions that all different vector SVGs we have here, and then we can have ours over here. So I'm just going to copy this real quick, copy address as text, and then keep that saved. And then we're also going to save this other one over here, do this, and then I have my vector snapshot actually on my toolbar over here, so I can just click this and it runs as well, and then we have that saved as well over here. So this one's going to be at the bottom. It's going to be that one right there. Cool. So now we're going to import these SVGs in. So we need to go up to Fusion, go down to import, and then go to SVG, and then we can paste whatever address we have there and enter there, and you can see all the SVGs we can choose from. Let's do our first one, which is going to be this one. It's going to import in as SVG, and for some reason, in the new version of DaVinci Resolve, once I import this in, it doesn't work. Oh, this time it does work. Interesting. So usually when that happens for me recently, it just doesn't work right. So you need to do it 2 times in a row, and then it'll work on the second try. So we can do this now, and then make sure this is going to be 1920 by 1080, which is our comp resolution. And then we have this over here for this version. You see, that is that. And let's use the same thing for this text over here. So go up to Fusion, go to import, and then SVG, and then find the one we want, which is going to be this one. Import in, choose that as a 1920 by 1080, hit OK, and then okay, I guess it's fixed now. And I'm just stupid. But now we have those imports in here like this. Let's move this over a bit more because we're going to need the space. Next, we're going to take this vector, that export over here. We're going to right click it, then we're going to ungroup it. Then we're going to highlight these nodes here, hit Control Shift Space, and then we're going to run the shape converter that we installed, KA shape converter, run that too. So what KA shape converter does is that it recreates the geometry of this SVG onto actual shape nodes, so they're actually vectorized inside of this vector space here, and so we can get very crisp lines when we are scaling and doing whatever inside the shape system here. So we're going to do the same thing for the next text over here. Just bring this next to it, bring this down here, make sure to ungroup it, have it selected, Control Shift Space, shape converter, a shape converter there, run it, and then it rebuilds that geometry there. Okay, very nice. So we can view both of them here, and from what we need to do here is match the P up with this P over here. Some of them have different amounts of points here, and so we need to make sure those points are the same amount and are positioned in the correct places in order for us to morph nicely between them. So how do we do that? Well, Resolve has a nice thing where you can go to one of the nodes here. Let's just do this one, and then highlight it, and then if you hit Shift T, it brings you up this points, and it tells you how the SVG is basically made. So it's basically starting from the middle over here at 0, going around, and then all these numbers are pointed there, and then connecting here. And if we take a look at our other SVG over here, hit Shift T, you can see that has a similar amount of points, but not quite the same amount. This one has 13 points because this is starting from 0. This other one has 15 points because it starts from 0 over here and it ends at 14. So what we need to do is basically line up those points in order for them to be the same amount. So we have a point going to one other point there. So you can see, you can just track along and see the numbers that are here. You can see that 3 is under over here, so 3 is over there, 4 is in the middle, 5, 6, 7. You find any extra points that maybe we can try and get rid of. So you can see over here it starts getting unsynced, so maybe we can get rid of that point there. And you can see the geometry is still there. It doesn't need that extra point, but if it does move too far, we can still readjust it however we want. You can see 8 is kind of on the bottom edge over here, 9's there, so maybe that's okay. 10 should be a little higher up onto here, so maybe we get rid of this end point over there because we have it right there. And maybe it moved the geometry just a little bit, so maybe we need to readjust this 9, not that 9, this 9 to be a little further up. Maybe that's fine right there, but now 10, 11, 12, and all right, this one looks pretty good. So all of these points are aligned in the same place, so now they're going to morph very nicely, and we didn't need to even use our other script that I made. So we'll probably be using it for a different tool there, but so since these are lined up perfectly over here, we're going to choose one of them to reference. So we'll do the skinny one over here, and we're going to start keyframing. So let's go to the beginning here. Let's keyframe it this there. Let's let's make this about, let's say make it for now a second long, and then we can adjust it layered. So we're going to go to keyframe 0 at the very beginning, then keyframe at 12, and then keyframe at 24 frames right there. Then let's go to the middle frame over here. I'm gonna go to the same P on the other node tree, keyframe that there, and then we're gonna open up the keyframes panel for the first time on this channel, and we're gonna fit that to the space. And if there's too many nodes here with too many keyframes, you can click this over here and hit show selected tool only, so it'll only show the selected tool inside the keyframe graph there. Let's give ourselves a little bit more room so we can see, and we know this keyframe is right underneath this playhead right here, so I'm gonna double click that. I'm gonna highlight that keyframe there, Control C, and this is on the singular node that we put over here. Let's go back to the other node that we have over here, double click this, and then highlight that keyframe that's under there, and then you can hit Control V, and it's going to paste that keyframe right over there. So you can see now that it's morphing between the two shapes very nicely because the SVG points are lined up in the same place, and it is built to be lined up correctly. So the reason I chose a variable font is because it morphs very nicely with itself. So yeah, we have that. And so we're basically going to do that for the rest of them. And you would think you would be able to duplicate the process with E if you just copy and paste it, but nope, because it's morphing from the center position over here, it needs to be done for every single letter that you have morphing here. So a little bit pain in the butt, a little bit manual work, but this is how it works. And so I'm just going to do this for the rest of the text that we have here. And if we have a little mishap where we need to start rotating points, I'll let you know my process for that as well. But I'm just going to continue this right now. Now in the specific example, it just happened to line up where the variable font fits perfectly. But for example, let's just draw something out and say, let's say the points didn't line up. There was the same amount, but they didn't line up perfectly with the numbers. So let me just grab, say, like a polygon, and then just draw something right here. And then let's highlight all these and hit Shift T. You can see where the 0 is over here, the 1, 2, 3 is over there. And let's just make another one. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Highlight that, Shift T. You can see 0 starts from over there because that's where we started the spline, and 0 starts from over here. And so if we morph between, say, these two paths over here, you can see how it rotates, and you don't really want that when you're using the text. And so I made some sort of script that helps us adjust that. So say we want this one, we want this graph to be rotated over here. So we want the top right to be starting at 0. So that means we need to rotate this graph once clockwise. So I'm just going to highlight this. I'm going to right click, go down to the polyline, and then I'm going to go to the very bottom. It says export. I think it's covered by the view over here, but it says export. So we're going to export that out. And then I'm going to choose these settings over here, hit OK. And then I'm just going to save this onto my desktop here. Then I'm going to run the script that I have, which is the rotate SVG script. And I'm going to run the one with the UI. If you don't have the UI, then you can't run it. You need to open up that script inside of a notepad and then change the settings how I change it. So I'm just going to put in my file path, which I'm lucky enough, and I can just grab it from my quick access right there, hit open, then it's linked to that file. I need to rotate it clockwise once. So it's on clockwise, which is going to be CW on the free script. And then we're going to move it by one step there. So once we have that ready, I can hit rotate. It does it. Then I can get rid of this script, and I can highlight this, what we have over here. I can right click and then go to polyline and then import at the very bottom. Import, and then we can hit import shape, and just go over to my desktop where it's saved that over here. We can open it up and then highlight this again, Shift T, and now you can see the point is now in the correct position where we needed it. And we can keyframe this, steal this keyframe, and then now properly paste it in the right position. So now when we morph between the shapes, it just morphs rather than rotates the whole shape. I have that there if you need it for when working with the SVG's points over there. So that's a very nice addition that you should have, and honestly it should be a stock setting. But yeah, now we have this right here. Let's highlight all of these and let's get rid of the keyframe panel. Let's go to the spline panel. We can right click this over here. Let's go to select all tools that are here, and then we can adjust the animation how we want. So we can hit Control A, S, hit Shift F to flatten all the keyframes. So it goes like this, nice graph. Hit Control T to bring up the transition controls. I'm not sure what they're called. I'm gonna hit Control F to center this again so we can see what's going on. And then I'm just going to drag this handle to the left like that, drag the right handle to the right like this. And then so now we have a nice fast morph between this right here. Very nice. And what I can also do is I can highlight this, and then I could say set ping pong or set loop, and it's just going to loop between this animation just like this very nicely. And say this is a bit too fast. I can highlight all of this, and I can highlight this. Let's bring it to like, so it does it every 2 seconds with my playhead there. Hit the time stretch button over here for the spline. It highlights that graph, and I can drag it out to over here, uncheck it, and now we can play it back. Now it proportionally scaled this very nicely. So we have this nice bobbing and back and forth between the two text variable fonts like this. So this is a much cleaner morph than the other shape morph that I've showed with the bitmap and the threshold choking effect, because it's actually doing it on an SVG and on an actual point. So it's very nice like this. From here, I'm just going to plug this into background node so we can change the color very quickly. Let's just go something like, I'll take that blue, something like this over here. Actually, we can keep it as white for now. Now let's stylize this a bit more. One thing I'm going to add is a time displace. So we're going to do some nice time displacement on this. And this is where I add the time displacement node that we just got from the WeSuckLess forum. I'm going to move this background into the yellow input of the time displacement. You can kind of play around with this already. And now I'm going to add a gradient. So I'm going to add another background node, drag this here. We can view that in our left viewer. I'm going to put that on the green input of the time displacement. Then I'm going to go and make this a gradient. So I'm going to hit the type, turn that to gradient. Then I'm going to make sure that it's going to be a vertical gradient. So I'm going to put this start point at 0.5, put that at 1, and this other point at 0.5 and 0. And then I'm actually going to bring this down a bit more so it just lines up with the text very nicely. Actually, let's not do that. Let's bring it up like this. And then now we could adjust the time displacement of this. So the strength is how many frames that we're going to be displacing. And let's just displace it 3 frames and then make it on blend. And then the midpoint should be the gray point there. So we play this back. You can see some sort of delay, and actually let's make this go from here to here. So now one side is going to start faster than the other. You can see how it's blending like that. The right side is starting before the left side because the lighter color is a value of 1 and the black color is a value of 0. So we have it working like that, and there's a nice smooth variation of time displacement. Maybe we can up this a little bit more. Let's just say, let's maybe do 6 frames. And so now it's going to chug a little bit harder, but also we're going to see it's going to be a lot more laggy, and we're going to have this ghosting effect, and we don't really want the ghosting effect. So we can do some threshold things we can try, or let's actually just try and use optical flow. So shift space, do an optical flow node, put that at the very beginning of the time displacement. Make sure we go to our time displacement and we put that to flow. Now it's going to use vectors to morph in between each frame like this, and it's going to chug your computer a little bit more. It should do something nice like this. So that looks pretty cool. It's a nice little wave effect, and maybe we don't even want this gradient map. We can just do something else. Let's say let's add like the noise texture from over here, put that on the green input of the time displace. And then now if we play it back, if we just run it back between those 48 frames, you can see it, if it was able to load, that it's able to create the noisy looking displacement between the two states that we have the text in. Let's see real quick. See something like that. Actually, I can do something like this. So now we have some sort of noisy displacement based on the time displacement like this. But I think what I want to do is I want to use the background instead. So let's just reset this. I'm going to use another tool that's actually already in Resolve. So we're going to go to our effects library, go down to templates, or we can just search for posterize. And then we have the one that's in the looks over here. We're going to drag that onto our composition, and then we can drag this onto our background over here. So we take a look at this. You can see that whatever is posterized is basically going to be clamping any of those values that are on the gradient over there. So right now it's at 5 steps. Let's put it on 4 steps, and then we could adjust it to fit our time displacement a little bit more. So for example, the gap should be 4 because it's going to be displacing it by 4, a frame of 4. Then we also need to take a look, align this with this path over here. So let's actually visualize it by putting a merge here, putting that to there, and then take a look. Let's blend this nicely so we can line this line in between each of these shapes here. So drag that there and drag this here. Let's take a look. Where is that aligned? Maybe drag this a little bit more until all the gaps are of their own color, basically. That's pretty good. So if we take a look, now each one is going to place based on its actual self, and it's not going to have a wave inside of it. This is going to time displace based on its actual word position. It's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is cache this because it's going to be a bit of a pain to play back. So I'm just going to, if you watch the last video about caching to disk, I'm going to do that. Right, cache the disk. I'm going to lock this out over here, lock the branch, and then okay. And then actually what I need to do is disk and also hit pre-render. Cool, that's pre-rendered, and now I can take a look, and it's moving the way I want it. I'm just going to stylize it a little bit more. I do have some presets that I have, my border effect, and I'm going to put an infinite shadow. And the border effect you can get from my all effects pack, which brings you all the effects from AE to DaVinci Resolve, the ones that are missing anyways. So it gives the same functionality as AE. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. I'm just going to add a border node that I have over here. So that's going to look nice when it's like this. I'm also going to add an infinite shadow, which I don't think this version is out yet. So put here, and then that looks pretty nice to me. Maybe we'll add some color. I did grab a color palette earlier, so let's just put that here, and then let's view our viewer like this. Maybe we'll add some colors here. So let's let's add like a background node and this here. Maybe we'll do a gradient on this background node. Let's change that solid color to gradient. And I put this part at the bottom tab, other part at the top. Around there is fine. And then I'm just gonna sample this darker color. Let's do like that one, and then do this color over here, maybe the lighter version. There we go. Maybe we need to, how far does it go? We should bring this down a little bit more and bring this up maybe a tad bit. Looks good to me. Maybe even just bring that up a little bit more, maybe around there. That looks good. And then maybe for our infinite shadow, we could just make this darker, maybe color like that. And for sure with this light one, we want this very light color there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe extend this down a little bit more. I actually want a border on the outside too, so let's just like, what I do here, I can actually, let's put this first, not like that. Then we have the border on the outside. I want to copy this. I'm going to Control Shift paste this down here, and I also have something on this node that gives me a nice transform that works with the offset of this. If I merge this two together, let's see, put it the other way, then I have that extra border just like that. And then I can move around this infinite shadow a little bit more, or maybe we can put it to a different type. Let's do the special type to be zoom subject, and then I can put this down a little bit more. And then, yeah, now we have something like the zooming out. That's kind of cool, kind of like that. Yeah, I can see there's a little bit of an offset there. I did have like an offset here. Let's put this down, bring that up a bit, line that up. That looks pretty good actually. Yeah, now we have something like that. Looks pretty good. Let's add a background to this as well. Background and a merge. Put this to a gradient as well. And I do have my preset on here for this type of gradient. And then we could let's do dark at the top actually, and then lighter on the bottom. And then extend this a little bit more. I don't know, something like that. Maybe we flip it. Maybe we flip this. Maybe make this a background. No, the one on the node. A bit darker. Let's do that darker one. Raise it up. I don't need it that much. All right, looks pretty good to me. And then let's lastly add a grain node. That gives us some nice grain, maybe half the power of that. And then we can play back. That looks pretty good to me. I see there's a little bit of a weirdness there, which I guess we can try and fix with the mask settings of this background. We do it this way. Yeah, it's kind of thickening that up a bit. And fix anything else, I think that should right there should be fine. And yeah, that should be it. So yeah, if you're interested in other Mograph Mondays, ones I did a long time ago, go check out this playlist right here. Otherwise, go check out my All Effects pack and subscribe, and have a good day.